Hi guys, so we're just here in Stamullen, old graveyard, and I'm here with Brendan, who's the caretaker of the area, and Brendan was very nice to let me in here today. You have to get a key off Brendan to come in and see these beautiful cadavers here. So Brendan is just going to tell us a little bit of history about the old tombs.
Okay, so you're very welcome to St.Christopher's Chapel. It's a medieval chapel in relation to the Preston family, who were Premier Viscounts of all Ireland, lived in nearby Gormanston Castle, which is about 2 miles to the east of here. And this was their family chapel, built in, they got permission to build it in February of 1434. And that was even before they became Premier Viscounts of all Ireland. They were bestowed with that title in 1478 by Edward IV, with services to the King of England, of course. So we're in the Preston family chapel, and the first tombstone you see here is called a Cadaver Tombstone. It shows a person after they have been dead for some time, but not yet fully skeletonized. And what you see here is a woman. This woman's name is Jane Dartas, who was married to Christopher Preston, and she died in the 1440s. And what you can see here is it depicts Jane Dartas, and she's encased within a shroud which is open at the head and the feet, tied back at the head and the feet, so the shroud is open down the middle. And it depicts her body not long after she's been dead, hence the name of a cadaver. And what it shows is a lot of insects feeding off the remains of the body. So you can see little eyes and things on some of these, like kind of creatures. So you've got all these kind of creatures with tails, some of them up around here, which are very hard to make out now because of the weather over the years has come down on top of leaves and vegetation and all that. So it kind of wore away some of the monuments, but some of them are little slugs. Some of them have got slug type bodies with little legs on them and the heads, and some of the flames are shooting out through the mouths of them. So they're little demons and things. They're snakes, toads, worms, beetles, and you can see them all here. There's another one there. There's one here on the breast which is pretty well worn, and here's another one here. There's one there with a crooked tail. So this is the type of thing. There's an identical stone to this just outside of Drogheda in an estate called Bewley House. Bewley House is just to the east of Drogheda, about 2 miles to the east of Drogheda, on the way to Baltray Golf Course. And in Bewley House, which is owned by the same family since the 17th century, but there's one of these, and it's standing upright in the old graveyard of Bewley. It's identical to this one here, and they're the two oldest. Now there's no doubt that the one here at Stamullen and the one in the grounds of Bewley House just outside Drogheda have been made by the same marker, because Helen Rowe, the archaeologist who done the eminent work on all of these cadaver tombstones, there's only 9 in the country, on the right breast here of her there's a little kind of creature eaten here, but there's letters here. Now, Helen Rowe thought they were 1151. Very difficult to make out here, but when somebody comes in and films with the kind of silver throw on, you can see the whole thing lighting up.
It comes out in edit maybe.
It comes out clearly. Now, she thought it was 1151. Now, the same mark is on the same breast in the same position on the one in Bewley House. But it couldn't be 1151 because it's too early for the Black Death. And these type of figures first appear on stained glass windows in France following the Black Death of the 14th century, so around 1347, 1348, when Europe lost 1/4 of its population. And they began in stained glass windows, then paintings, and then ultimately they began to be carved. So all of the 9 cadaver stones in Ireland are carved in England. And they're brought over to ports in Ireland. So they appear there's 2 in County Louth, a double one in Drogheda, and one in Bewley, 2 miles outside Drogheda. There's 2 in County Meath, one here at Stamullen, and one in a place called Dravette, which is over near the borders of County Kildare, near Enfield, on the borders of County Kildare with Dublin. So over that side of County Meath. The rest of them, one is in Gowran, one is in Castledermot in Kildare, one is in Gowran in Kilkenny, and the next ones I think are in Waterford, Cork, and there could be two in Waterford maybe.
Oh, and I never knew they were that close.
Yeah, so they're down there, but these are the most gruesome. The one at Stamullen and the one in Bewley is the most gruesome. And when Helen Rowe looked at the one in Bewley, she's seen the same figures, but then when you clean it up and see them, it's not 1151, it's too early, and then it looks like 115. Why? But whatever it is, Helen Rowe maintains that it's the maker's mark on this one.
Oh, like a number, yeah. So how many, would it be like, say, a painting? You know, the way they're numbered.
It could be a maker's mark. We can't know for certain because they're medieval and we haven't got the documents for them. But the two of them, this one here in Stamullen and the one in Bewley outside Drogheda, are identical in every way, shape and form.
Yeah, they're amazing, aren't they?
Yeah, they really are.
Like, I've never really come that close to one before, and
yeah,
you know, there. And as you were telling me earlier, then this
used to be open. You can see the cut there as where the cement actually is the stone itself, and you can see a faint signature of TW, which was Tom Wiseman, no longer with us, 1978.
1978.
Tom was a stonemason for the Meath County Council.
So he sealed this in 1978.
Yeah.
So there's the steps you were telling me as well going down under here, a vault.
The steps, the entrance to the tomb is just beneath our head.
Just beneath the head would be the entrance there, guys.
Would have been around that way.
Steps going inside, yeah.
To come in, originally to come in. The last burial here was 1925. And the next stone to it is, like, this isn't a cadaver stone. The cadaver is only where the body is wasting away.
Yeah.
This one shows the second Viscount Gormanston, Sir William Preston, who died in 1532, and his second wife, Eleanor Dowdall, who was from Newtown, Stalaban, just outside of Drogheda. And this shows the second Viscount and his wife in high relief. So showing the Lord as he lived in his life with all the regalia and his titles and his sword and his dagger. She's got a crown on her head, she's got a chain around her neck, she's got a lapdog at her feet, and he's got the lion at his feet. So this is showing the Lord and his lady as they would have been in life, with all the regalia, all the titles, everything.
So it's like an effigy, really, isn't it?
Yeah, an effigy, whereas the next one is just a Cadaver Tombstone, which relates to the Black Death, which began in the mid-14th century, but the subsequent plagues continued afterwards. This particular tombstone dates then to around 1450, as does the one in Bewley, and they're the earliest of the 9
1450, wow.
Yeah, so they're the earliest of the 9 cadavers.
Imagine to think we still have a part of history with us from 1400s, you know.
Yeah.
And it's important, I suppose, you know, to have, you know, that's the gate there. So the gate is locked up, and Brendan here is the caretaker and he looks after the area. He does a very good job, because it's important to keep these places protected, you know, and safe from vandalism and stuff like that, because, you know, I think, you know, if one of these got damaged or broken or a part of it,
yeah,
you know, it would never be really the same to repair that.
They'd never repair the actual.
You know,
they will have some job probably trying to move it if the current Viscount wishes to be buried within the tomb.
Yeah.
I don't know where that will go with a debate between the OPW or the Heritage Service of Ireland or the National Monuments of the Museum. I don't know, but it would take a bit of work now to actually move that stone.
Oh yeah.
To get into the entrance.
That would be very heavy, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well,
but like that, so
you could end up maybe breaking it, and to break away that concrete slab which surrounds it now, you could actually do damage to the stone that's encased now.
Yeah, because it's all together. Yeah.
So it's possible that's it would take a massive amount of work. Whether or not the next Lord will be buried, he also has got continuation of sons in his family too.
Yeah.
Now they've left Gormanston Castle. The Preston family arrived in Gormanston Castle 2 miles from here in 1363, and they remained throughout the whole centuries until 1947. And like many houses in the mid-20th century, they had to up sticks and go, because their income basically throughout the centuries was based on tenants. And of course the Land Commission coming in the 1930s forced a lot of these big older English type of houses to close. They couldn't sustain themselves anymore, and this is exactly what happened. So as soon as after the First World War, with the last Viscount dying in the actual Second World War, that they up sticks and they go. So they sold the castle in 1947 and they moved to London. So that was the end of the family after about 600 years of being in the parish.
Yeah, and so it's very elaborate underneath here, say the vault. You have your lead coffins and...
Yeah, you'd have all the leaders of the household were just buried below. So their brothers, sisters, wives. Unless you were the head of the family, you weren't going to get buried in the tomb.
So there's an altar down there, as I think you were telling
Yeah, there's an altar
earlier.
there. So this was a chantry chapel. This would have been where the family would have come in at mass times.
Yeah.
There's two arches in here. Again, hard to make out with the ivy, but you can make out this particular arch here.
You can see, yeah.
They've been since blocked up and closed. So inside these arches were originally open, and what was inside the wall is the ruins now of St. Patrick's Parish Church of Stamullen, and where the priest would be inside here saying mass down to his congregation. The congregation in the aisle further down behind the arches wouldn't have actually seen the gentry family in here at mass as well. So they had their own privacy, and that being their
separated
own private chapel, to also listen to the priest who was next door saying his divine service for them.
Some great stuff for history, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's still standing, thankfully.
Yeah.
You can just see through there, yeah. The old... And it's a lovely little job they've done here as well, isn't it?
This is for little children who were in a baby's home from 1955 to 1987. St. Clair's, run by nuns, St. Joseph's Babies Home, Stamullen,
yeah.
Aware of this. And the little kids would pass away or whatever, for whatever reason, they would be buried down here in the graveyard. So this is just a little...
A memorial
place
area for them.
Some of the children would have been buried within here, because this, when you're back this far in the chapel, you would be outside the actual tomb now. So you're digging down onto the roof of the tomb. The tomb stops about here underneath.
So all this vault area stops just where you're standing.
Underneath us.
Yeah.
When you went down the steps, you came down to a little altar.
It's a big area, isn't it, when you think about it? Like from the top of that up there entrance, just over as far as here.
Yeah.
Like it is a massive area of vault, isn't it?
Yeah.
And how many coffins is in there again?
Well, it depends on how many head of the household was buried down here. Some of them died overseas, so weren't buried down here. It's been a tomb, as I said, so they've acquired the chapel here since the mid 15th century, and the mid 15th century. So the first lord to go into it, and there was many viscounts after that. So the first viscount would have went into it after 1478. Some of them didn't die in Ireland, some of them died in battles and that overseas. But there would be quite a few viscounts in here.
Yeah.
There'd be quite a few buried in here when they passed over the centuries, yeah.
And there's a connection then to Kensington in England.
Well, no, the current viscount lives in Kensington.
Oh, he lives in Kensington, the current viscount.
He was in the House of Lords.
House of Lords,
in 1939, so he's well on in age. He's now retired from the House of Lords, but he would be the current Viscount Gormanston, so he would be his name is Nicholas Dudley Preston.
Nicholas Dudley Preston.
Nicholas Dudley Preston is his name, and he would be currently the 17th Viscount Gormanston. And he has two sons. He has a William and a Jenico beneath him as well. So.
Yeah. And they're still around. Imagine the line keeps going, doesn't it?
Yeah, after the...
You know, the family line keeps going and going.
Yeah, down on the side of the tomb here, there's a couple of crests, which would be crests of families.
Family crest, yeah.
To the Preston, so they're the likes of the Birminghams, St. Lawrence, Molyneux, Dowdall, those type of families. Big, powerful Anglo-Norman families who also stuck to their Catholic religion.
Yeah.
So you would have all these old, original Anglo-Norman clans that came to Ireland in the 12th century, 13th century. Of course, we were all the same religion. And then it was Henry VIII who closed the monasteries by disagreeing with the Church of Rome in 1536. And once he'd done that, then if you're now a friend of the Church of Rome, you're no longer a friend of Henry VIII. So this was the first time there was animosity between both countries with religion. So he fell out with the likes of the older Anglo-Norman families that were powerful in Ireland by this stage, all Catholic. So you would have had the likes of those powerful families: Preston, Talbot, Cusack, Barnwell, Fleming, all of those type of Nethervilles, Lynches. So all of those families that came with the Normans, hence the title like of the 14th century, Jesus the Normans, were more Irish than the Irish themselves, because they were marrying into Gaelic families, they were preaching the Gaelic laws, they were wearing the Irish dress, and so they were even speaking the Gaelic language. And on order of the English government 1366, called the Statutes of Kilkenny, you're no longer going to preach them Gaelic laws in Ireland, you're not going to marry into the Gaelic families. So even there was animosity there, because the Normans, that's where we get the term from, becoming more Irish than the Irish themselves. But by the time Henry VIII closes the monasteries, now if you're not going to become the Church of England, if you're a friend of Rome, you ain't a friend of me. So he lumped these together with the rebels of Ireland, who were always against everybody.
Yeah.
So the insurgents of Ireland, the likes of the O'Neills, the O'Hanlons, the O'Donnells, the O'Carrolls, the McMahons, all of those clans in Ulster, who were dead set against the crown anyway. At the time of Henry VIII, he now is bringing the Anglo-Norman Catholic aristocracy. For the first time, they've got something in common with our native Irish, the clans of Ulster, hanging on to their religion. So now you've got Preston joining with the likes of Phelim O'Neill and the O'Neills of Ulster, and hence, of course, Henry VIII's daughter puts a stop to that, and she's the person responsible, her and James I, for the plantation of Ulster, the flight of the Earls, 1607, the plantation of Ulster, 1610, and then the Irish uprising again, 1641. Preston, the Viscount at the time, shakes hands with Phelim O'Neill. Phelim O'Neill actually marries a niece of the Lord Gormanston. So here you have Irish insurgency who have been dispossessed of their 6 counties in 1641 when they see the rattles of Parliament.
Actually joining together then.
Yeah, you've Charles I who is making too much, what's he doing, leniency towards Catholicism in England. Cromwell doesn't like that. Too much power the king has, hence the Civil War in England. And because of the Civil War in England, then the Irish see that as an opportunity. And you have the rebellion in Ireland of 1641, which the aristocracy of the Anglo-Normans, Catholic, are now shaking hands with the likes of Phelim O'Neill and Rory O'Moore, Miles the Slasher O'Reilly, O'Carrolls, the O'Donnells, the O'Hanlons. All of these people are lumped together, all because of what Henry VIII done in 1536.
What a damn Slasher.
Yeah, the Slasher O'Reilly.
The Slasher, he got that for a reason, I'm sure.
He did, of course, and he was killed at the Battle of Finney in County Longford in 1646 by Cromwellian soldiers. So that was the huge animosity between the countries, lumping these people together. And because of Preston in the 1641 rebellion, siding with the Irish rebels of the north, of Phelim O'Neill, because of that, they lose their title. So they lose the title in 1641, and when Cromwell comes, he takes the land from them. They don't lose their house, so they stay in the castle because they're pretty big, but they lose their title. So their title's not recognised from the 6th Viscount, even though they continue to have it, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. The 11th Viscount dies, and he leaves a kid that's only the age of 12. He's Jenico Preston in the castle. But his granny, a Barnwell, a Catholic, has to take the child and hide him because his mother, who has been divorced from the father, is actually English Protestant. And she wishes to take the 12-year-old, bring him to England and educate him in the Protestant faith in England. And the granny Barnwell in the castle is having none of that.
Beautiful to see. And great information from you, Brendan. Thanks very much for giving us the little story of the history of the family here that's buried here and everything that goes with it. So if you're interested, guys, in coming here and having a look at this old tombstones here and the history that's involved, you can contact Brendan. I think there's a sign on the gate there with your phone number if you're interested in coming to have a look at them.
Yeah. And
it's well worth coming here in Stamullen in County Meath to have a look at these. It's lovely stones. So thanks again, Brendan.
You're welcome.
For giving us a little tour of the old area here.
You're welcome. They're pretty unique. Just if you bring the camera to the door, because sometimes there's down at the back, which I didn't show you, down at the back is just the remains of, it's a holy water font.
Yeah.
But it's a piscina umbri, which is the place where you wash your hands after the chalice and all the rest of it at Mass. Decorative to some description, and it would have been just where the priest would have actually washed his hands. Again, it'll show you maybe how the floor would be lower down in here. I've got a few artefacts when I'm cleaning up. I can't touch the place much because it's archaeologically sensitive. So I mean, if you dig,
you'd be disturbing,
So all I do is really, and to believe it or not, it's good even for natural heritage, because I've seen the likes of hedgehogs in here, which is brilliant. I found a couple of little lizards in here one time, which is brilliant, and they were breeding. You've got bats, so hence the ivy, and sometimes the ivy can be a nuisance to deal with, because
all the inhabitants here,
the stone as much as it's breaking it up, so it can be a nuisance. You need to cut the ivy in places, so I've managed to cut it down at the bottom of that arch. and it just gets rid of the ivy, because the ivy can do a lot of damage if it works into the stone.
Yeah, it can destroy. Yeah,
these
and
are
the
some of
roof
the
is lovely too. A
artifacts.
good idea. The roof
The perspex roof was
to
put
keep
up
it
by the
sheltered.
current
Yeah,
lord just to protect the actual stones from the weather.
yeah.
And these are just some of the artifacts I come across when I'm cleaning the weeded area at the top. So most of them are just off older coffins. It
So
does show
these are off handles of coffins, is it?
they would be handles of coffins. Some little mouldings as well that would have been within the church at some stage, like window mouldings. You can see that that's medieval, and it's a window moulding of some description.
Yeah.
And here is interesting because it shows the kind of roof that was on the medieval chapel with the original slate holes in them. So we know then that the chapel was not tiled but was slated.
You'll have your nails going through that then, is it?
They would have been nails going through that. They would have been pretty big as well. So the whole roof structure would have been in slates. So the rest are just little artifacts that comes up.
I found a couple of these myself in graveyards as well. The handles of coffins.
And then when you come to the door, you can see up here at the door, unfortunately one side had been destroyed, covered in concrete. When you come out here, there's a head looking up. It's upside down.
Oh yeah.
And there's the two eyes and the nose and the mouth. So you get a good look at that. That figure is actually looking back up. It's a kind of a gargoyle figure of medieval. There was one on this side as well, but unfortunately it's been covered over a little bit. It was here in the corner.
There would be after time, yeah.
It's tucked away in here.
Weather worn, I suppose.
It's a beautiful the way it's decorated. And then on the south facing wall of the chapel on the exterior, so you can see now the outside of the actual St.Christopher's chapel.
That's where we were, yeah.
St. Patrick's. So that was St. Patrick's medieval parish church of Stamullen. Substantial church. It's about 98 feet long by 28 feet in width. And that could have been highly decorated roof. And again, on the hill where we are, when you look around, that would have been dominant in its day as people were coming towards this village.
They'd have,
that massive church with those.
They could see the enemy coming.
Yeah, they could see, and it was for power and status. The church being on the hill with a hugely tiled decorative roof with pointed arch windows and doors, as you can see. A fantastic piece of... so that was the parish church, and in 1434 the Preston family built St. Christopher's Chapel onto St. Patrick's Church. But they put two crude stones on the outside. One is easy to see, and the second one not too easy to see. So you can see here that you've got a sandstone gargoyle head.
Oh, sandstone up there, yeah.
That's a red sandstone head, and that's looking south. And you've got a very more cruder one, which is not sandstone, and you can see it just up here. And they haven't tried and left it there. I don't know what the reason is. It could have weathered, maybe. It could have been the type of stone, so it weathered a lot, and much faster than the red sandstone. And all you can make out really now of the gargoyle is just the mouth.
The mouth, yeah.
Yeah, but it is definitely another.
And you wouldn't know unless you said it.
Yeah,
that they were, would you? They just look like stones, you know.
People have lived here all their life and they've never seen it.
They've never known.
Never seen it. And if I'm in doing a tour with people, usually I might be in doing a tour with a bus, and maybe if there's a local round and it's the local that will come over after and say, Jesus, I've never seen them. And they might be in their 70s or 80s and they've lived here all their life, and their parents, and you never see what's on your doorstep.
No, they're lovely to see, aren't they?
So they're interesting, yeah.
And they're still there, and they will be for many more years.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to have a look and show them the door again, where you go in. You know the nice plaque over there. So that's the door entrance. So that's locked up to keep them safe. Brendan looks after the area. So we have. You can just see there, Gormanston Family Vault, 2000 it says on that now, was that?
Yeah,
that was placed there.
He would have eventually got the gate up and the perspex roof to protect the monuments.
Oh yeah.
He's done this off his own bat, really, rather than, he tried to get the OPW to try and help in some way in the Meath County Council.
Yeah.
Both really weren't taking responsibility for the tomb. So the reason the gate was put up, and with the carrying the date of 2000, it was put up by a metal worker, a foundry in Dublin, a lovely decorative iron gate.
Yeah, it's nice.
He put it up because the youths were kind of in the evening time, antisocial behaviour. Part of the monument was broken. So me being local, I am an historian, and I've met him here a couple of times, and because I live in the village, I'd keep the key for him. So
Yeah.
basically that's the only caretaking I do, is to keep the key. If I'm not around, somebody is around. So when Cathal called me earlier this morning, I happen to be away, and my wife and son and grandkid has gone to West Wicklow to see my other son, so there's no one in the house, so I couldn't direct you to
I know, and listen, I appreciate it very much for coming over, because it was a bit of a short notice, but
yeah, when I heard you were coming such a distance, I
yeah,
said, well, I'm only 25 minutes
and I really wanted to see it, so thanks very, very much again for letting us in to have a look here, and I'm sure the people
you're welcome.
Are delighted they got to see it.
This is St. Patrick's medieval church then, so this would have been the parish in 1615, but when they came back in 1622 they said this chapel was ruinous. St. Patrick's was in ruins in 1622, but not in 1615. St. Christopher's Chapel of the Prestons was still in good nick up until 1629, but it was never repaired after that, because a Viscount died in 1629, and in his will he said he wished St. Christopher's Chapel to be repaired, and for 2 paintings, one of himself, to be hung within the Chapel of St. Christopher's. That never happened, and strangely enough, there's a new chapel built adjacent to Gormanston Castle with a date carrying 1687, which is here, which is interesting. It's a sandstone window, and this would be the chancel. So this would be where the priest would say mass, but that's pretty original, a Gothic window of red sandstone still left.
You can see it.
Facing.
You can see the old cement on it there, and
yeah,
everything. Yeah,
the old lime mortar that was put back to keep it in place. And then there's one more interesting grave, if you wanted to see it, in relation to the Prestons.
Yeah.
Which is a world famous artist.
Oh.
She's down at the front in a very simple grave. This is a Preston wife here.
That's one of the Prestons. So that's one of the people in the vault, is it?
Or one of the Viscount's wives, so they don't go in the vault.
Oh.
So that would be one, and this is the second one. And as you can see, they're identical.
So the wife doesn't go in the vault?
No. So this was Jenico, the 14th Viscount, and the 14th Viscount was married twice. He was married first to Louise Ismay Bellew, which she died first in 1875, and his second wife is Lady Jane Connellan from Kilkenny, and she's buried here.
So his 2 wives are buried here?
His 2 wives, and as you see, the stones are identical.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah, they're
2
identical.
wives are buried here.
So the wives don't go with the husbands. In only the Viscount, the head of the household, goes into the Preston vault. The wives are buried on the outside, and as you can see, identical stones, and there's 2 wives buried, one behind the other, both facing east. But there's an interesting headstone there.
So back in the day, the men were kind of... The men had more power, did they, back in the day?
Well, yeah.
That wouldn't happen really today.
No, you wouldn't find that today, absolutely. No.
The women wouldn't like that today.
So here you have a very simple grave. It's a very simple grave. And you can see here, it's sacred to the memory of Lady Butler. And it's Elizabeth
Southerton Thompson, is it?
Southerton Thompson, yeah. And she's widow of Lieutenant General Sir William Butler, and he was from Banchan, County Tipperary. Great friend of Charles Dickens and a friend of the royal family.
Oh wow.
She became a famous artist. She became a Victorian artist, and she painted many scenes of English soldiers coming back from wars in Africa and India in the later 19th century. She became Painting of the Year she got in 1875, 76 and 77. So much that when she painted soldiers, she didn't want to see battle scenes, although she painted them. She wanted to see soldiers coming to her studio after they came back from battle. So she had them in their uniform with all their scars, all their sorrow on their faces, with their guns hanging up. And when people seeing her paintings, they began to cry. In 1877, her painting, The Roll Call, which was the missing, she used to do missing in action, and the roll call of soldiers who died.
Yeah.
So those that came back, she painted them. Her paintings went on show all over England, and people did. You can Google Lady Elizabeth Butler, and you'll get brilliant images of her. But Queen Victoria was the one who snapped up her painting Roll Call that went on full tour of England in 1877, and today it's part of the Royal Collection in the Palace of England. So she's a world famous artist. The reason she's here in Stamullen is because her daughter, Lady Eileen Preston, her daughter Eileen married the 15th Viscount Gormanston in 1911. And her husband had died, so William Butler died in Tipperary, and Lady Elizabeth Butler comes up to live with her daughter in Gormanston Castle because her daughter had married the 15th Viscount. So when she lived in Gormanston Castle, she always said that she loved the area so much that when she died, she wished
finish her days here,
in the parish after she died. So she died on the Feast of the Holy Angels. I think it's November or October 1933.
1933, William died, I think, was it?
No, herself.
Or herself?
Yeah, it's only her that's buried here.
Oh, yeah.
It's not. And so she, October 20...
Yeah.
Yeah.
1933.
1933 she died and she was buried here. But people come, she's tucked away here. Somebody found a few weeks ago and done a newspaper article in Drogheda that some English genealogist, kind of artist stroke, had been over in Ireland or something, and the headlines in the paper was grave of Lady Elizabeth Butler discovered or found in Stamullen. And when I read it, I just think, when you shake your head, I'm saying, what do you mean by found?
She's been here all along, yeah.
We all know she's here.
Yeah.
I've met people here. Very few people come, but those that come are interesting. Very few come they always come single, and they're usually always art students. So I've met people from America, Australia, and particularly China. And they've come here. They might come here on a bike, and they come here, and you just walk around sometimes and you see them, and you know if they're single and foreign when you go to speak to them that they're usually art students, and they know about her, and they come just to...
They have the connection there, yeah.
So just a simple grave that she's in, and this here would be, I think it's a Viscount's brother. Is it this one? Yeah, this is Edward Preston from Silver Stream House, which again was a gentry house in the village, but this would be a brother of a Viscount. So as I said, a Viscount is only buried in the tomb, but his wives and his family and his children, unless you're the eldest, so it was only the sons would become Viscounts as well, and this would be a brother of one of the Viscounts.
Nice
again,
Celtic cross, yeah.
This is for a school teacher, which would have been erected by the Prestons. As you can see, the crosses are almost the same, but just making it a little bit smaller than the Viscount's brother. But again, this would have been an early school teacher in the Victorian period within the village, Patrick McNamee.
Oh, passed to eternal reward, 1892. Yeah.
And you can see the way it's put up, that the relationship with the Prestons, the Celtic cross is just a little bit smaller than the Viscount's.
Yeah, all the old knots in it and designs and...
Yeah. You're on the side of an early Christian enclosure, even though the monuments are medieval, the tombs are medieval.
Yeah.
When you're coming into the village, the road gives it away because you're coming in on a curve. The curve comes right in around the graveyard.
Yeah.
It goes right around the graveyard, and it has a river at the back of the cemetery. So it's a D-shaped enclosure, not circular like most early Christian sites, but it's D-shaped, being demarked at the back by a river, while the cut-and ditch or sunken ditch that went round it. So it's hence the name of the village, Stamullen. It comes from the name Chap Mullan, which is the house of Mullen, which is St. Mullen's down on the banks of the River Barrow in County Carlow. And when you go down to South County Carlow, right on the banks of the River Barrow, you have this beautiful little village, exactly the same layout as this. If you go down and have a look, it's a bit more quieter than this, as we're near Dublin now. And instead
I actually lived near St. Mullen's.
Yeah, it's St.
myself.
Mullen's. So St. Mullen's.
Yeah, it's down by a river there.
Yeah, the Barrow.
The
Barrow, but you've got that curve and bend coming in.
Michael Flatley's mother is actually buried in St. Mullen's graveyard,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the dancer Michael Flatley.
Yeah, I didn't know
His mother is buried in St. Mullen's graveyard,
Okay. Well, this is almost certainly not a St. Mullen monastery, but when they say Chap Mullan, it's the house of Mullen, so it's probably a disciple from the monastery of St. Mullen, because that was his monastery. So you would have people that would be priests and monks and things would be recruited, and of course they'd leave the flock then to go off and establish another one.
Yeah.
So it's almost certainly that Chap Mullan and St. Mullen, Stamullen, it's the same variation. So it could be a disciple, a monk from the monastery of St. Mullen's who founded this. Could be Mullen himself. St. Mullen reigned in the late 7th century, so around 680 to 690, 700 AD, around that period when he reigned. The first mention you hear of Stamullen is in the 11th century. You hear it at the year 1034, when there was a battle at Chap Mullan between forces of Ulster and the forces of Meath. That's the first time you see the name Stamullen. But on excavations around the place, it shows it to be an early Christian monastery.
Yeah, and you have those beautiful yew trees
And you've got the typical yew trees which you see all over.
They're quite large, those ones. I haven't seen ones that big actually.
Some of them are pretty early. Like, I mean, the yew trees always come from the 18th century. I think the first one is 1739.
Yeah, they're huge, those ones.
Yeah.
You know, you'd see smaller versions of them.
Some of them, and the kind of flimsy and taller ones,
Yeah.
and things like that. Yeah, there was a lot more. In fact, in recent years, I mean, there's the butter one, as you can just see here beside you, and there was about at least another 3 or 4. Some of them,
Yeah.
some of them maybe shouldn't have been cut down.
So that's the walk and the video, guys, around Stamullen, and great history, lovely area. And thanks, Brendan, again for the tour and the information. And if anybody wants to come here, it's well worth a visit. It's great history, lovely little area and village. So that's it, guys. I'll leave it at that. And as I say, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. And I'll catch you all on the next adventure. Take care. God bless.